Before we dive into this story, I need you, yes, you, my beautiful family, to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. It helps the algorithm show this story to more people who need this kind of truth in their lives. I worked hard to keep this story authentic, powerful, and straight to the point. No fluff, just raw emotion and real lessons. Now, let me take you into a moment that changed everything. You're brave to dress like that. The words sliced through the champagne chatter of the Seattle Tech Summit like a blade finding soft skin. Sophia Chen's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Her throat constricted. Not because she was shocked, she'd heard variations of this her entire life. But because she'd thought tonight would be different. Because she'd spent 3 months perfecting her sustainable fashion pitch. Because she'd designed the emerald silk dress herself, every curve and line was calculated to celebrate rather than apologize. Because she'd finally felt ready to claim her space in this marble-floored world of venture capital and billion-dollar handshakes. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel ballroom blurred for a split second. Her stomach dropped like she'd missed a step on a staircase. 28 years old, and her body was still the first thing men noticed. Still, the thing they felt entitled to comment on. Marcus Winters didn't even look up from his phone as he spoke. Billionaire founder of Nexus Analytics, the man whose predictive algorithms had revolutionized Fortune 500 decision-making before he pivoted to sustainable tech. Right now, he was just another man who thought her existence required his commentary. Sophia's chest burned. The familiar heat of being reduced to a spectacle, of having her intelligence bypassed for her silhouette. Every rejection letter flashed through her mind, the ones that called her designs too niche, the investors who'd suggested she focus on mainstream appeal, the buyers who'd smiled while explaining that her aesthetic was a bit much for our customer base. Her hand trembled once. Just once. Then she set her wine glass down with deliberate precision, turned to face him fully, and spoke with the kind of quiet power that makes rooms go silent. I know. 2 words that carried the weight of every woman who'd ever been told she was too much. Too bold. Too visible. To herself. Marcus looked up then. Finally. But Sophia was already turning away. She walked across that marble floor like she owned it. Because in that moment she decided she did. The emerald dress didn't shrink or apologize. It flowed like liquid confidence past clusters of tech titans who suddenly seemed smaller. Her heels clicked a rhythm that sounded like freedom, like a woman who just remembered exactly who she was. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. But behind her, Marcus Winters sat frozen at the bar, his phone forgotten, watching a woman transform dismissal into pure power. He had no idea he just created his own reckoning. Later that night, Sophia sat in her Capitol Hill loft apartment. The Space Needle blinked in the distance through rain-streaked windows. She didn't cry. Didn't draft angry tweets or call her best friend to vent. Instead, she put on Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, let the saxophone wash over her, and opened her sketchbook. The pencil moved like muscle memory. She didn't overthink, she designed. Waistlines that celebrated curves instead of camouflaging them. Seams that embraced rather than restricted. Fabric that flowed over hips, the world told her to hide, and necklines that honored shoulders instead of covering them. Rage wasn't the fuel. Reclamation was. She didn't text her business partner, Lily, to complain about Marcus's comment. She didn't need to, because she knew these weren't just sketches. They were declarations. Across town in his Belltown penthouse, Marcus stood before his bathroom mirror. Half drunk, tie loosened, Armani jacket abandoned on Italian leather. He stared at his reflection, not in vanity, but confusion. He hadn't meant to insult her. At least, not consciously. But something about her presence had unsettled him. That walk, that confidence, the way she'd said, I know, like a woman who owned every inch of space she occupied. He poured another scotch, but it didn't burn the memory away. Back in Capitol Hill, Sophia whispered to herself while shading the final curve of her sketch, "Let them stare next time. I'm not the one who needs to change." She pinned the design to her inspiration wall, the same wall that would soon birth a revolution sustainably. But for now, it held one thing, a dress born not from spite, but from the quiet power of a woman reclaiming her narrative. Have you ever walked away from an insult not with anger, but with purpose? Not to argue, but to build something that made the slight irrelevant? Drop a fire emoji in the comments if you've ever transformed pain into power. Your engagement helps this story reach others who need to hear it. The next morning, Sophia's bedroom was dim, but her mind blazed with clarity. The sketch from the night before sat on her drafting table, raw, real, and entirely hers. The outline of a structured blazer dress, a hybrid between boardroom authority and evening elegance, stood bold on the page. It didn't hide curves, it honored them. Didn't minimize presence, it amplified it. She stared at it. Last night, she'd walked away. Today, she would create forward. Her sewing machine hummed like a heartbeat in the converted warehouse space she shared with 3 other designers in Georgetown. The industrial district's coffee roasters and art studios provided the perfect backdrop for creation. Sophia stood barefoot on concrete floors, draping sustainable bamboo silk over her dress form. 4-way stretch, temperature regulating, ethically sourced from a women's cooperative in Portland. Her hands worked with certainty. Every stitch was resistance. Every cut was a revolution. She didn't scroll through Pinterest for inspiration. She didn't study Fashion Week trends. She looked inward, thinking of women who'd been told their bodies were too much. Of executives who'd bought shapeless blazers to feel safe in boardrooms. Of the invisible ones who deserved to be seen. She designed for them, not as customers, but as mirrors of her own journey. The following week, she brought the prototype to her mentor, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a respected figure in sustainable fashion and one of the few Latinas who'd made it to the C-suite of a major Seattle fashion house on her own terms. Elena didn't speak immediately. She never did. She examined the garment inside and out, checked the seam integrity, ran her fingers over the hidden stretch panels, then looked up. "This was born from fire," she said simply. Sophia nodded. "Don't let anyone cool it down." Over the next month, Sophia worked relentlessly. 10 pieces, 5 diverse models, 1 mission. She called the collection Chen Confident and refused to pitch it to department stores. She wasn't waiting for their validation. Instead, she launched a digital campaign shot against the raw brick walls of Pike Place Market and the glass facades of Amazon Spheres. Black and white photography, no retouching, each model introduced with a line of truth. "My waist doesn't need to shrink for me to matter. My thighs move when I walk. And so what? I'm not made for your gaze. I'm made for my purpose." The response was immediate. Instagram reshares exploded. DMs flooded with orders. Emails from boutique buyers in Portland, San Francisco, and Vancouver poured in. Seattle Met featured her in their Emerging Designers Spotlight. The Stranger wrote a piece titled, "Local Designer Creates Fashion That Thinks Like the Women Who Wear It," and Crosscut highlighted her sustainable practices in their Environmental Innovation series. Through it all, Sophia didn't brag. She didn't mention Marcus or reference the comment that had sparked her fire. Because this wasn't about proving him wrong, it was about proving herself right. One evening, Lily arrived at the studio with Vietnamese takeout and a knowing grin. "You've been dodging my calls," Lily teased, unpacking faux containers. "I've been building," Sophia replied, sipping green tea instead of wine. Lily surveyed the sketches, covering every surface. "You're really doing this, aren't you?" Sophia nodded, her voice steady. "I've been doing this. You're just now seeing it." Lily narrowed her eyes, studying her friend's face. "You're glowing, you know." Sophia smirked. "I'm sleeping 4 hours a night and living on protein bars." "No," Lily said softly. "You're glowing because you stopped apologizing for existing." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind only close friends can share. Then Sophia broke it. "Remember that tech summit last month?" Lily paused mid-slurp. "The one downtown?" "Of course." "He was there." "Who?" "Marcus Winters." Lily nearly choked on her foe. "Please tell me you didn't talk to that man." "I didn't need to," Sophia said. "He talked. I listened. Then I left." Lily exhaled with relief. "But what did he say?" Sophia smiled, her eyes bright with determination. "Something that reminded me I don't need his permission to take up space." That same week, an email arrived with the subject line, "P&W Innovation Summit 2024, Keynote Invitation." Sophia stared at it for 5 full minutes before opening. They were offering her the opening keynote, not a panel spot, not a mention, but the main stage. At the same venue where it had all started. She said just, not for revenge, but because she was ready to speak her truth out loud. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is becoming undeniable. Have you ever turned a moment of dismissal into a moment of determination? Let us know in the comments below. The Pacific Northwest Innovation Summit had returned to the Fairmont Olympic, but the energy this year felt different. The same marble floors, the same crystal chandeliers, the same champagne towers, and handshakes between tech titans sizing each other up. But Sophia was different. This time, she wasn't clinging to the periphery with someone else's invitation. This time, she walked through the front entrance flanked by her publicist and assistant, portfolio in hand, wearing a dress that commanded silence. Soft cream wool with strategic gold threading traced her silhouette, not to sexualize, but to celebrate. Clean architectural lines that spoke of power earned, not given. Her hair swept up in a deliberately imperfect chignon, like controlled chaos she'd mastered. The crowd parted as she moved. Not from shock, from respect. The whispers began immediately. "That's her. That's Sophia Chin. Chin Confident just got picked up by Nordstrom. I heard she turned down venture funding to maintain creative control." At the bar where it had all begun, Marcus Winters stood frozen. This time he saw her. Really saw her. His glass remained untouched as he watched her move through the room like she owned it, because she did. Sophia didn't rush her steps. Her heels clicked with purpose across the marble. She made eye contact with the summit director, embraced a group of young female founders, and headed toward the speaker's lounge. She didn't look at Marcus. Didn't need to. As the doors closed behind her, Lily grinned and whispered, "You just changed the entire energy of this room." Sophia adjusted her sleeve and smiled. "Good." Meanwhile, Marcus remained at the bar, immobile. Same event, same space, but the woman, she was unrecognizable and unforgettable. He didn't sip his drink, didn't check his phone. His mind kept replaying her entrance. A year ago, he'd barely noticed her leaving. Now, he couldn't unsee her arrival. She hadn't even glanced his way. And somehow, that devastated him more than any confrontation could have. Inside the green room, Sophia stood before the mirror, not checking her appearance, but centering herself. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. Lily handed her the wireless mic pack. "You sure you don't want note cards?" Sophia shook her head. "No scripts." Lily nodded with pride. "Then go set this place on fire. The good kind." Minutes later, the summit host's voice echoed through the ballroom speakers. "Please welcome our keynote speaker, founder of Chin Confident, Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, and one of the Pacific Northwest's most innovative sustainable fashion entrepreneurs, Sophia Chin. Applause erupted before the curtain parted. Marcus's hands didn't move. He wasn't clapping, not because he wouldn't, but because he couldn't. She stepped onto the stage, poised and grounded. The spotlight caught the gold in her dress, making it seem alive. She adjusted the mic and looked out, not just at the audience, but into them. "I was once told," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the acoustics, "that I'd made a bold choice for a networking event." Polite laughter rippled across the crowd. She paused, letting them sit with it. That wasn't a compliment. It was a warning, a reminder that my presence made someone uncomfortable. Silence. Not confusion, contemplation. "I'm not here tonight to make anyone comfortable. I'm here because I stopped waiting for rooms to accept me and started building my own." Applause, louder now. She didn't smile for it. My journey didn't begin with seed funding. It started with a sketch that came after a comment meant to diminish me. Instead, it redirected me. Marcus's jaw tightened. He remembered every word. Sophia concluded 20 minutes later, her head high, "I didn't come here to be palatable. I came to be present. And I hope every woman watching knows, you don't need to shrink to be seen." Standing ovation. Even the event staff wiped their eyes. Marcus remained seated, still silent. Not out of disrespect, out of reckoning. Because it hit him now. Not just what he'd said a year ago, but what he'd almost erased. She hadn't grown despite his comment. She'd grown because she'd refused to be diminished by it. Backstage, Reagan took a slow breath. Lily handed her water. "You destroyed them," Lily whispered. "I didn't destroy anything," Sophia said, exhaling slowly. "I revealed everything." Out in the ballroom, a young black designer in her early 20s clutched her notebook, tears streaming down her face. She'd sketched through the entire speech. "I can do this too," she whispered to herself. The most powerful speeches aren't the ones that tear others down, they're the ones that lift others. Have you ever heard words that changed the trajectory of your life? Share this if you believe in the power of authentic storytelling. Marcus Winters had commanded many rooms in his 34 years. Boardrooms where billion-dollar decisions hung on his analysis. Conference stages where his predictions shaped market trends. Investment meetings where his presence alone validated startups. But tonight he was invisible. Not because no one noticed him, but because someone else owned the space entirely. Sophia Chin. And for the first time in his career, Marcus wasn't the center of attention, and he didn't want to be. The audience buzzed after her keynote. VCs leaned into hushed conversations filled with admiration. Young entrepreneurs posted quotes from her speech with hashtags like #ChinConfident and #TakeUpSpace. At the bar, the bartender poured another scotch without being asked. Marcus's first glass sat untouched. "She lit them up, huh?" the bartender noted casually, nodding toward the stage. Marcus didn't respond. He was haunted by memory, the emerald dress, her graceful exit a year ago, his careless words. He hadn't meant them to land like a slap, but they had. Now her triumph echoed back like thunder in his chest. In the VIP lounge overlooking the ballroom, Sophia stood by floor-to-ceiling windows, sipping sparkling water, shoulders relaxed. She didn't check social media, didn't pose for selfies. She simply existed in her victory. Lily popped an olive into her mouth and grinned. "You just revolutionized the way this industry talks about women with a 20-minute speech." Sophia tilted her head. "That wasn't my goal." Which is exactly why it worked. A knock interrupted them. The summit coordinator stepped in apologetically. "Ms. Chen, several attendees have requested meetings. We have VCs from Cascade Capital, Emerald City Ventures, and..." She hesitated. "Marcus Winters." Lily made a sound between a scoff and a laugh. Sophia didn't flinch. Tell the VCs I'll schedule follow-ups. Tell Marcus there's no meeting. The coordinator nodded and left. Lily grinned. Ice cold. No, Sophia said quietly. Crystal clear. Downstairs, Marcus waited outside the lounge for 10 minutes before receiving the message. He didn't argue. Didn't try to push through his assistant. He simply nodded, and that stung more than he'd expected. The main ballroom hosted a panel about the future of sustainable technology. Marcus was supposed to be moderating. He walked onto the stage 5 minutes late, distracted. Eyes followed him, some curious, others indifferent. The moderator introduced him, but he barely acknowledged it. He sat stiffly, listened as others spoke, and offered minimal input. His mind stayed with her voice. I stopped waiting for rooms to accept me. Later, as the evening wound down, Marcus escaped to the hotel's rooftop terrace. Seattle spread below like a circuit board of possibilities, Elliott Bay shimmering under the moon. He needed air, space to think. That's where he found her again. Not close, not waiting, standing by the glass barrier, gazing at the city like she was reading its future. He hesitated at the terrace entrance, then stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind him. Sophia didn't turn. She'd heard him, felt his presence, but didn't acknowledge it yet. He moved closer, maintaining a respectful distance. Sophia, he said finally. Her posture didn't shift. Her voice was cool. You remember my name now? I do. She turned slowly, eyes sharp but not angry. You don't get to mean or not mean what you said. You said it. I carried it. No tremor in her voice. Just truth. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. Sophia studied him, really looked, not to intimidate, but to understand what she was seeing. He wasn't smiling, wasn't defensive. He stood in the discomfort like a man without armor. Do you want forgiveness? She asked. No. Then what do you want? To understand what I missed. Sophia tilted her head slightly. Then start by not making this about you. He nodded. That simple motion, no rebuttal, no justification, was the most honest thing he'd done all evening. Without another word, he turned and walked away. No reaching for her hand, no asking for her number, just space. And somehow, that was the beginning of something neither could name yet. Sometimes the most profound conversations happen when someone finally stops talking and starts listening. Have you ever had a moment where silence said more than words? Let us know in the comments. 3 weeks later, Sophia spoke at the Seattle Fashion Alliance. No glitz, no celebrity guests, just folding chairs in a community center in the International District, passionate creators, and local designers sharing space and dreams. The topic: inclusive design in the age of fast fashion. Sophia didn't know he'd be there until she stepped onto the makeshift stage and saw him. Marcus Winters, back row, baseball cap pulled low, wearing a simple navy hoodie and jeans. No entourage, no press following, just him with a small notebook. She almost stumbled in her introduction. Almost. But the community didn't notice because Sophia was still Sophia, commanding, fluid, present. She facilitated discussions about sustainable manufacturing, accessible design, and ethical labor practices. Between segments, her eyes occasionally flicked to the back row. Each time, he was still there, pen in hand, listening intently. After the event, while organizers stacked chairs and guests networked, Sophia found herself alone with Lily near the side exit. Lily handed her a reusable water bottle and followed her gaze. Don't say it. I wasn't going to, Sophia murmured. But he's been sitting there for 2 hours. Sophia sipped her water slowly. He didn't once check his phone. Lily exhaled. Okay, now I'll say it. What does he want? Maybe nothing. You don't believe that. I don't know what to believe yet. The next event was an adaptive fashion workshop in a makerspace in Georgetown. No formal invitations, no public listings, just word of mouth and community email chains. There he was again. Back row, standing this time near exposed brick walls, notepad and coffee in hand. No questions asked, no lingering stares, just observation. Sophia pretended not to notice. She demonstrated sustainable fabric dyeing techniques, advised young designers on cost-effective production, and offered a tutorial on inclusive sizing methods. When the workshop ended and the space began to empty, she turned to see him leaving quietly. He didn't approach, didn't wave, just left. By the third event, a forum on fashion equity hosted at the University of Washington, Sophia stopped pretending surprise. She spotted him before entering the building, already seated in his usual position. This time she made the choice. After the panel discussion, she approached directly. "Are you following me?" she asked, arms crossed casually. Marcus looked up, blinked, then shook his head. "No." "Then what is this?" "I'm learning." She tilted her head. "Learning what?" "How much I didn't understand." Her breath hitched slightly, not from flattery, but from honesty. He continued, "I'm not here for you to notice me. I'm here because I want to understand what I was missing." Sophia studied his face. No shame there, just work. Real work. The kind that came from dismantling assumptions, not just polishing them. "I don't need you shadowing my events," she said calmly. "I'm not here for you," he repeated. "I'm here for myself. People say that right before they make everything about them." "I'll leave if you ask." She hesitated. That was the test, and he'd passed. "No," she said after a beat. "Sit. Just keep staying quiet." He nodded, then once again didn't linger. He left. Back in her Capitol Hill apartment that night, Sophia sat at her desk surrounded by fabric swatches. She thought about his face, still but open, present but undemanding. She traced a hemline slowly. She didn't know what this was, but for the first time, she didn't feel watched. She felt heard. Sometimes the most powerful form of support is simply showing up without expecting anything in return. Have you ever had someone listen to you without trying to fix you? Share your thoughts below. The next time Sophia saw Marcus, it was at a sustainable design lab in the industrial district that partnered with emerging fashion startups. Not open to the public, just a workspace where creators gathered weekly to test eco-friendly materials and prototype new techniques. He didn't belong there, but he wasn't pretending to. He sat on a metal folding chair in the corner, wearing the same understated hoodie and jeans, no phone visible, legal pad filled with careful notes. Sophia spotted him halfway through explaining heat-activated dyes to a group of textile students. She didn't pause or signal, but when the session ended, she walked over. He saw her coming, didn't stand or smile, just waited. "You're getting consistent at this," she said, arms folded. "I'm trying to be better at knowing when not to speak." She gave him a look. "You don't get points for basic courtesy." "I'm not asking for any." Sophia studied him, then asked directly, "Why here?" Marcus tapped his notepad. "Because this is where the real work happens. I've spent too many years thinking I was the work." That made her pause. Not because it was profound, but because it was accurate. She sat in the chair beside him. No invitation, no permission asked. He looked surprised but said nothing. "Taking notes for a blog?" she asked dryly. "No." "Documentary?" "No." "Then what?" "Personal reference." She raised an eyebrow. "For what purpose?" Marcus hesitated, then turned a page. He held the notebook toward her. She took it, read lines of observations. Sophia noted, "Design shouldn't correct bodies, it should celebrate them." Reminder, bold, isn't neutral language. Stop using inclusive like a marketing buzzword. She lowered the notebook. You're documenting my words. I'm trying to understand how much of this industry excludes people without realizing it, and how much I contributed to that through ignorance. Her silence now wasn't distance, it was consideration. A young designer passed by. Hey, Sophia, the organic cotton samples are testing weird again. I'll be right there, she called back, then looked at Marcus. You really want to understand? He nodded. Then help me sort these fabric samples. He blinked. I don't know anything about. I'm not asking you to design. Just sit. What? Ask nothing. Move when directed. I can do that. She stood. He followed. In the materials room, Sophia clipped her hair up, rolled her sleeves, and pointed him toward a sorting table. She handed him spools of organic thread and indicated a color-coding system. You mess this up, you ruin the entire batch inventory, she said. He gave a slight smile. No pressure. No applause either. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side in near silence. She calibrated dye baths. He organized the thread by weight and color. She tested fabric samples. He passed her measurement tools. Slowly, something shifted. Not romantically, but rhythmically. They weren't adversaries or symbols. They were two people doing quiet work that headlines would never celebrate. Later, as she packed samples into storage containers, he lingered near the door. I'll be at the Fremont workshop next week, he said quietly. She glanced at him. I didn't invite you. I didn't ask for one. The beat. Then, bring gloves next time. These dyes stain skin. He smiled but didn't thank her. Just nodded and left. Sophia exhaled, not in relief, but release. For once, she didn't feel like someone was trying to break her down or build her up. Just meet her where she already stood. Real partnership happens when two people work side by side without trying to impress each other. Have you ever found a connection through shared purpose rather than shared words? Let us know below. Capitol Hill was misty that Thursday evening. Not enough rain to open umbrellas, but enough to curl hair and catch light from the street lamps. Sophia didn't mind it. She walked with her hands in her coat pockets, tailored trousers brushing her ankles, and low heels clicking softly on the wet sidewalk. Beside her, Marcus matched her pace. Not too close, not trying to lead, just walking like he'd learned the rhythm of being beside her rather than ahead of her. The sustainable fashion panel had ended an hour ago. Another successful discussion where Sophia had handled questions with precision and grace. She wasn't tired, but she was full. The kind of fullness that comes after speaking truth and feeling genuinely heard. They hadn't planned to walk together. But when she'd exited the venue and found him leaning against the brick wall, hands in pockets, simply waiting, she'd paused. Not surprised, just assessing. You can walk with me if you don't talk, she'd said. He'd nodded. And here they were. You always walk after events? He asked as they passed a coffee shop glowing warm against the evening. I don't like being chased by compliments. He nodded. You don't like being chased, period. She smirked. That too. Silence for a few steps. Then, you ever take ride shares? Only when it's late or when I've worn something impractical and regret it. He chuckled softly. That happens often? I design for purpose. Not every design is meant for me. I learn the hard way sometimes. That's honest. The mist thickened slightly. Sophia stopped under a bookstore awning, looked at him directly. Why haven't you made a move? She asked plainly. He blinked. What? You've had plenty of opportunities. Events, workshops, the lab. You never push. Barely speak unless spoken to. He exhaled slowly. Because I know what it looks like when men pretend to be helpful just to get close. She didn't respond. Let him continue. I don't want to be a plot point in your story. I just want to be present for it. That made her chest shift, not melt, just loosen slightly. They stood under the awning for another moment, city sounds pulsing around them. You're not afraid of being overlooked, she observed. I used to be terrified of being ignored, he said. Now I'm scared of being loud when I should listen. She gave a small, thoughtful nod. Progress. Only if it's consistent. The rain picked up slightly. Sophia pulled her coat tighter. You hungry? She asked. He raised an eyebrow. Not a date, she added quickly. I just don't want to sit alone at that late-night cafe on Pine. He nodded. I'll sit across from you and pay for my own tea. Smart choice. Sometimes the most romantic gesture is respecting someone's boundaries. Have you ever found attraction in someone's restraint rather than their pursuit? Share your thoughts below. The cafe was warm, windows fogged from the temperature change. Inside, an acoustic guitar played softly through speakers, not curated ambience, just comfort. They ordered chai and almond cookies. No wine, no pretense, just warmth. Sophia sipped her tea, then set it down carefully. I used to think visibility was dangerous, she said quietly. Like if someone stayed long enough, they'd find something wrong with me. Marcus didn't interrupt. Growing up, my body was always the conversation, never my mind. If I were too confident, I would be aggressive. If I wore something fitted, I was asking for attention. No version of me didn't threaten someone's comfort zone. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Sophia leaned back. That's why I built a brand, not just a business. I needed a space where I didn't have to minimize myself to fit someone else's expectations. He finally spoke, and I tried to make you small with one careless comment. She met his eyes. You didn't make me small. You just didn't see me clearly. The table grew quiet. Then he said, I want to learn how to stand beside you without diminishing your light. She blinked slowly, not because it was poetry, but because it was truth. When they finished their tea, she stood. I'll walk you to the corner. He smiled. You sure? I'm not doing it for you. I just want to make sure you don't get lost in Capitol Hill and end up at some tourist trap. They laughed together as they reached the crosswalk, mist still falling gently. Marcus turned to her. Can I ask you something? She tilted her head. Would it be okay if I kissed you? Not to start something, but to honor this moment. Her lips parted slightly. Then, slowly she nodded. Under the streetlight, no crowd, no cameras, no expectations. He stepped closer, gentle and deliberate. His lips met hers with quiet reverence, not hunger, but gratitude. When he pulled back, she didn't move away. That wasn't terrible, she whispered. He smiled. I'll try not to let it go to my head. She turned and walked into the mist, leaving him standing at the corner with something he'd never felt before, peace earned rather than assumed. The most meaningful connections often begin with the smallest, most honest moments. Have you ever experienced intimacy that felt like coming home rather than going somewhere new? Let us know in the comments. Sophia didn't text Marcus that night. She didn't need to. The kiss wasn't a promise or a contract. It was a moment sealed without expectations. But in the days that followed, everything shifted subtly. She sketched with more fluidity, moved through meetings with lightness she hadn't noticed in months. Even her team sensed the change. You seem different, Lily mentioned over coffee. Different how? Settled. Like you're not fighting invisible battles anymore. Sophia considered this. She wasn't different because of a man. She was different because the energy around her had stopped asking her to defend herself. 3 days later, they encountered each other again. Not by accident, not by arrangement, at a sustainable textile conference in South Lake Union. She was on the innovation panel. He was in the back row. No notebook this time, just listening. Afterward, as attendees networked and business cards were exchanged, she caught his eye across the room. He waited. She gave a slight nod, an invitation without words. They didn't go to a cafe or rooftop. They walked the quiet streets of Belltown, her heels in her hand, his jacket over one shoulder. They ended up outside her Capitol Hill building before either had spoken much. She paused at the security gate. "Do you want to come up?" His voice was steady. "Only if you're sure." She nodded once. And that was enough. Sophia's loft wasn't grand, but it was distinctly hers. Exposed brick walls, plants cascading from steel shelves, bolts of fabric organized by color and texture, sketches pinned like living blueprints across every surface. He stepped inside carefully, like entering sacred space. She locked the door, kicked off her heels by the wall, and turned on warm Edison bulbs. No overhead fluorescence, just soft light and gentle shadows. She didn't offer him coffee or wine. She didn't ask what he wanted. Instead, she moved across the room and unpinned a sketch from the wall. One of the earliest Chin-confident designs, the blazer dress that started everything. She turned to him. "This piece was born the night you made that comment." He nodded, understanding the weight. "It changed my entire trajectory," she continued, stepping closer. "I don't need you to undo that. But I want you to understand what it costs to transform dismissal into determination." "I do understand." Sophia unbuttoned her blazer slowly, folding it over her drafting chair. "I didn't invite you here to impress you," she said softly. He swallowed. "I didn't come to be impressed." "Good." Then, without ceremony, she reached out and placed her palm against his chest. Not suggestively, not demanding anything more, just connection. Marcus placed his hand over hers. Neither moved for a long moment. Then, slowly, he leaned in, not toward her lips, but her forehead. He rested there, breath steady, presence grounding. Sophia closed her eyes because this wasn't a performance. It was peace. When they finally kissed again, it wasn't because the moment demanded it. It was because it felt like the most honest thing they could do. Mouths met gently, not rushed or desperate. His fingers brushed her cheek, tracing down her jawline with reverence. She stepped closer, pressed into him, not seeking safety, but offering trust. He pulled her closer by the waist, anchoring her gently. No control, no urgency, just rhythm. They made it to her vintage leather couch, moving slowly, deliberately. Sophia sat first. He followed. She leaned into him, knees tucked beneath her, one hand resting on his shoulder. He looked at her questioningly. She nodded. "This isn't about fixing anything," she whispered. "I know. If this feels like redemption, stop." "It doesn't." She searched his eyes. "Then stay present." He lowered his forehead to hers again, breathing with her, matching her inhale and exhale. She unbuttoned his shirt slowly, watching his face with every movement. He guided her hand to help remove her blouse, whispering, "Be here with me." "I am." When her top fell away, she didn't cover herself. And he didn't stare hungrily. He received her like a man who'd spent months learning the difference between consuming a body and meeting a soul. His shirt came off next. She ran her hands across his chest, not for arousal alone, but for understanding. "Still okay?" she asked softly. "More than okay," he whispered back. Their bodies moved slowly, intentionally. No performance, no pressure, only presence. And when they finally connected fully, it was less like surrender and more like alignment. They didn't rush toward climax, didn't strain for dominance. Just devotion to the moment, to each other, to the sacred act of being completely present. When it was over, they didn't speak immediately. She rested her head on his chest. His hand traced slow circles on her back. Their breathing synchronized, 2 heartbeats choosing peace. Finally, she whispered, "This doesn't fix the past." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I don't want to fix the past. I want to build something that doesn't repeat itself." Monday morning arrived early, but Sophia was already at her studio before sunrise. Coffee, Coltrane playing softly, fabric bolts waiting to be transformed into something meaningful. Her calendar was packed with deadlines and investor calls, but her energy felt centered, unshakable. The night with Marcus hadn't thrown her off balance. If anything, it had made her more herself. Not because of what they'd shared, but because of what he hadn't taken. By 9 a.m., her small team arrived. 3 designers, 2 interns, and her operations manager. The converted warehouse space buzzed with creative chaos. Swatches flying, sewing machines humming, laptops propped up with charger cords snaking everywhere. Around 10:30, the door opened. Marcus entered carrying 2 boxes of sorted fabric samples and a quiet nod. No announcement, no grand gesture, just a man with folded textiles and understood boundaries. One of the interns blinked. "Is that?" Sophia raised a hand gently. "Yep." She didn't explain. Didn't need to. She met his eyes once, gave a slight chin tilt toward an open work table, then said simply, "Sort by weight." No talking. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. For the next 3 hours, he did exactly that. Organized fabric by weight and weave, measured twice before labeling, didn't interrupt workflows or ask unnecessary questions. He followed the studio's rhythm like he belonged there, even though everyone knew he didn't. And somehow it worked because he respected the creative process. Lily arrived at noon with lunch and eyes full of skepticism. She spotted him immediately. "Oh, so he's here now," she said, setting down bags of Vietnamese food. Sophia didn't look up from her cutting table. "He's helping." "With what?" "Organization. Staying quiet. Being useful." Lily crossed her arms. "Is this some new unpaid internship program?" Sophia finally looked up. "Lily." Her friend studied her face, then glanced toward Marcus, who was carefully wrapping delicate silk samples in tissue paper. "Good," Lily said finally, "because I don't want to have to break any expensive equipment." Sophia smiled. "I know. Sometimes trust isn't earned through grand gestures. It's built through quiet consistency. Have you ever watched someone earn their place in your world through patience rather than pressure? Share your thoughts below." The emails flooded in faster than Sophia could process them. Podcast requests from NPR. Cover story inquiry from Fast Company. Profile pitch from Vogue Business. A video clip of Marcus from a recent conference. "She's not just a designer, she's the future," had exploded across social platforms, pulling Sophia into a media spotlight she hadn't sought. Every outlet wanted the same angle. The power couple narrative, the redemption story, the romance that transformed the tech world. Her publicist texted repeatedly, "This is the moment we capitalize on." Sophia typed and deleted her response multiple times before settling on, "Not this way." That evening, she sat in her studio with the lights dimmed, phone face down on her drafting table. Marcus entered with dinner, takeout from her favorite Ethiopian restaurant in the Central District. He placed the bag on the work table without speaking, reading the weight in the room. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. "They want a joint profile. About us. Together." He didn't move toward her. "And?" "I said no." He walked closer, hands in his pockets, then nodded once. "Good decision." She blinked, surprised. "You're not upset?" "I'm relieved." That stopped her mid-thought. He sat across from her. "I didn't show up in your life to be displayed. I'm not here for optics or headlines. If being beside you means staying in the background of your mission, that's exactly where I want to be." Her throat tightened slightly, from emotion, not frustration. You mean that? Every word. A few days later, Sophia was invited to speak on a national panel, Disruptors Reshaping American Fashion. She accepted, alone. No +1, no shared spotlight, just her expertise and her voice. As she walked onto the PBS studio stage, the audience applauded not because she was dating someone notable, but because she commanded respect in her own right. Meanwhile, Marcus watched from his Belltown office, streaming the conversation on his laptop. Arms folded, heart full, not with pride he somehow deserved credit for, but pride in himself for knowing when his absence was more supportive than his presence. The most secure relationships happen when both people can shine without dimming each other. Have you ever found love that felt like expansion rather than explanation? Share your thoughts below. Sophia hadn't called ahead. She'd simply booked a flight from Seattle to Sacramento, packed a small suitcase, and driven her rental car through the familiar streets of her childhood neighborhood. The conversation with her grandmother couldn't be postponed any longer. Nana opened the door with her usual posture, hand on hip, eyes inspecting every detail. "You look thin," she said without preamble. "You're not eating right up there in that rain city." Sophia stepped into the house, smiling despite her nerves. "Good to see you too, Nana." The house hadn't changed. Same sunflower placemats on the kitchen table. Same plastic-covered sofa nobody was allowed to use. Same scent of jasmine and pine sol that had defined her adolescence. Nana poured tea without asking and sat down. Sophia took the chair across from her, legs crossed, heart racing. "Go ahead," Nana said without looking up from her cup. "Go ahead with what? You didn't fly down here for my famous iced tea. Speak your piece." Sophia breathed deeply. "I'm seeing someone." "I know. I saw the videos." "You know who he is?" Nana sipped her tea slowly. "I know he owns the company that rejected your first patent application. I know he used to be the kind of man you swore you'd never give the time of day to." She looked up. "What I don't know is whether he's changed or if you've lowered your standards." Sophia felt her chest tighten. "He's changed, Nana." "Men don't change, baby. They just get better at hiding who they really are." "This one did change." Nana raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Sophia took a steadying breath. "He stepped back when I needed space. He supported me publicly without taking credit. He tells people he's proud of me but never acts like he's responsible for my success." A long pause. Nana set down her teacup. "You love him." "I do." "Does he love you?" "He does." Another pause. Then Nana leaned back in her chair. "Then I suppose I'd better meet him properly." Sophia blinked. "You're not angry?" "I was. Then I watched that panel you did on television. You stood up there and didn't hide behind his name once. You wore your confidence like armor." Nana's voice softened slightly. "Baby, I've been praying for years that you'd never settle. That you'd know your worth so clearly that any man would have no choice but to respect it." Nana stood, walked over, and placed both hands on her granddaughter's face. "Just make sure that when you love him, you don't lose yourself in the process." "I won't. And if he ever forgets why he fell for you, I'll remind him myself." That night, Sophia and Marcus FaceTimed while she sat on Nana's front porch. "She wants to meet you," Sophia said. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I wasn't sure I'd pass the initial screening." "You haven't passed anything yet. You have to survive the Sunday dinner test." Marcus laughed nervously. "Should I bring flowers?" "She's allergic to most flowers." "Wine." "She doesn't drink." "You're messing with me." She grinned. "Completely. Just bring yourself and prepare to answer questions about your intentions. Sometimes the real test of a relationship isn't public approval. It's the quiet nod from the person who taught you how to value yourself. Have you ever brought someone home to meet the person whose opinion mattered most? Share your experience below. 6 months later, the night wrapped Seattle in silk and possibility. The city shimmered below them like a circuit board of dreams, Elliott Bay reflecting moonlight in gentle waves. Sophia stood on the rooftop terrace of Marcus's Belltown high-rise, wind playing with the edges of her hair, the weight of the evening settling softly in her chest. Behind her, the terrace glowed with candlelight, tall ivory tapers and glass hurricanes, soft jazz threading through speakers hidden among potted evergreens, the lingering scent of grilled salmon and rosemary from the dinner they'd barely touched. Marcus adjusted the collar of his charcoal blazer, watching her. She wasn't dressed to impress. She never needed to be. But tonight, the deep navy silk dress with its open back and flowing skirt made it difficult for him to breathe. Not because of her beauty, but because of what she carried. History, hope, and a heart that had every reason to guard itself but had chosen to trust him. She turned, holding a wine glass delicately. "I still can't believe you kept this private," she said, gesturing toward the setup. He smiled. "I may have bribed the building management." She laughed, sipping slowly. The saxophone behind them held a note that seemed to make the entire city pause. "Marcus!" He looked up. She stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the city lights like mirrors. "What if this doesn't last?" Her voice wasn't fearful, just honest. He didn't flinch. He took her glass, set it on the stone ledge, and stepped close enough that her breath caught. "Then we'll build it to last," he said steadily. She blinked. "If it cracks, we'll reinforce it. If it burns, we'll plant something new from the ashes. If it breaks," he touched her chin gently, "we'll learn how to make something beautiful from the pieces." Silence stretched between them. "That sounds exhausting," she said finally. He chuckled. "It will be. But nothing else has ever felt this right." Sophia stepped back, arms wrapping around herself briefly before dropping. "I'm scared of becoming dependent. Of needing you so much, I forget how to breathe on my own." Marcus moved toward her again, deliberate and slow. "Then let's agree. We don't lose ourselves in this. We grow side by side. And if we ever feel like we're shrinking to fit, we pause, we talk, we adjust. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it." "Us," she whispered. "And I'd rather fight for us every day than float through anything with someone else." She looked away briefly, city wind playing in the silence. "I don't need a ring," she said suddenly. He raised an eyebrow. "I didn't offer one." She turned sharply. "Not like that. I mean, I don't need jewelry to know this is real." Marcus's expression softened. He didn't reach for a hidden box or drop to one knee. Didn't promise forever like it was something simple or guaranteed. Instead, he reached for her wrist, gently turned it over, and kissed her pulse point. Slow, deliberate. "I promise to protect this rhythm," he whispered against her skin, "as long as it beats beside mine." Sophia's lips parted, not for words, but for breath. Tears welled, not from sadness, but from recognition. This wasn't a proposal. It was a covenant. A choice to stay conscious in the middle of building something real. Behind them, one song ended and another began. The candles flickered taller, as if reaching for something invisible. Marcus wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her close. No ring, no audience, no script, just two people daring to promise something authentic. The most meaningful commitments aren't announced with fanfare. They're whispered in quiet moments between two people who choose each other daily. Have you ever experienced love that felt like a choice rather than a feeling? Share your thoughts below. 1 year later, the Sustainable Fashion Alliance was buzzing with its usual Thursday evening energy. Young creators, emerging designers, and local entrepreneurs packed the community center in Georgetown. No glamour, no curated lighting, just folding chairs, passion, and a projector that still took forever to connect. Tonight's panel: the future of ethical fashion and technology integration. Sophia sat at the moderator's table, feeling the familiar comfort of speaking to her community rather than performing for an industry. She facilitated discussions about supply chain transparency, introduced emerging designers to potential collaborators, and offered practical advice about scaling sustainable practices. In the back row, Marcus sat quietly. No designer clothes, no entourage, just jeans, a sweater, and a small notebook. He'd been attending her community events for months now, not as her boyfriend making an appearance, but as someone genuinely learning. During the Q&A, a young designer raised her hand. "Sophia, can I ask something personal?" Sophia nodded. "How did you find someone who doesn't try to compete with your light?" The room grew quiet. Sophia glanced briefly toward the back row, where Marcus sat with his arms crossed, smiling slightly. "I didn't find him," she said, turning back to the audience. "I built my own sense of worth first." He found his way to that foundation. The young woman nodded like something had just clicked into place. After the event, as organizers stacked chairs and attendees exchanged contacts, Sophia and Marcus walked to her car together. "You handled that question beautifully," he said. "You heard that from the back row? I wasn't that far away. And besides," he opened her car door. She was right to ask, "You do shine pretty brightly." Sophia paused before getting in. "You know what I realized tonight?" "What?" "This feels normal now. You being here, supporting without inserting yourself. Us building something together without losing ourselves separately." Marcus leaned against the car door frame. "Is that good or scary?" "It's everything." As they drove through Capitol Hill toward her apartment, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Nana. "Watched your live stream tonight. That man's still treating you right." She showed Marcus the message. "Think I passed the final test?" he asked. "Are you ready to spend every Sunday dinner for the next 40 years explaining your intentions to a woman who raised me to never settle?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm ready to tell her every week that her granddaughter taught me the difference between loving someone and being grateful for the privilege of walking beside them." Sophia pulled over, put the car in park, and kissed him. Not because the moment was perfect, but because it was real. "Yeah," she said against his lips. "You're ready." If you've ever been told you're too much, or felt like you needed to shrink yourself to be loved, this story is for you. Drop "I see you" in the comments below, because your story matters. Hit that subscribe button if you believe love should amplify who you are, not edit you. Share this with someone who needs to remember they don't need permission to take up space. What moment made you realize you were enough exactly as you are? Tell us in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, let's build a community of people who refuse to dim their light for anyone. Thank you for following Sophia and Marcus's journey. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding your other half. They're about finding someone who celebrates the wholeness you already are. Like if you felt this. Subscribe if you believe in authentic love. Comment if you're ready to stop apologizing for existing. This is just the beginning.